All right, guys, put another nickel in the Clownfish was right jar. We're going to talk about DEI and gaming and tech. And man, oh man, things are changing very, very quickly. In fact, just as the gaming industry is bragging about how there are so many women and non-binary developers working in the video game industry now, because, you know, the numbers of a certain kind of people matter apparently more than what they can do. We're finding out that Trump is definitely walking back the DEI stuff on the federal level. And now it's coming out that tech executives and other business owners are like, oh, thank God we can get rid of DEI. And I think we're going to see this trickle down all the way through all the industries. And we're going to go back to meritocracy. And then that's how a lot of entertainment becomes better, because we're going to have the most qualified people, regardless of gender, regardless of identity. Because in the last couple of years, especially, they've been hiring people and giving preferential treatment to people that tick off certain check boxes, right? And we've seen the results of that, not hiring the most qualified person. In some cases, the most qualified person might be a black lesbian in a wheelchair. That's completely possible.
That's the thing I'm worried about. Like, I'm just worried that it's going to go the opposite way, where people who are qualified are going to get passed over because they're so afraid of looking like they're doing DEI hires. And the whole movement was stupid to begin with. If you just hired people based on, you know, skill and gave people chances, we wouldn't have even had this whole DEI thing. And you didn't need stupid officers just to make sure that you were hiring the right percentages of people. Just hire the right people.
Yeah, so let's talk about this, and this kind of goes along with what we were saying with movies and video games and other stuff. That feels like a lot of the stuff that's been in development for the last 4 or 5 years is kind of getting pushed through the system, kind of getting flushed, and because I think a lot of it is from the DEI era, and they know, these studios know, these companies know that what they're producing is subpar, but you know, they thought they were doing the right thing, or at least they thought they were doing the right thing to save face. But privately, it turns out they're like, yeah, this doesn't work. This doesn't work for us. So we're gonna talk about this. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. You will get a woohoo if you do.
Woohoo!
Go out to clownfishminus.com, help support the Reef, buy some merch. You can also join the Reef over here on YouTube and also on Locals. Thank you very much for that. So Christopher F. Rufo, I think he's the one who kind of blew the lid off of Disney's DEI stuff a couple of years ago. And he's been following this, and he said he's been talking to tech executives, and they're telling him that Silicon Valley companies are going to respect the ban on discriminatory DEI, which is blowing through very quickly. In fact, the mandate is not only are we terminating DEI at the federal level, but we're firing all the people who hold those positions. And if you try to change the language, which they did do in some cases, they were trying to, like, instead of being a DEI officer, now you're like an executive or something like that. They're like, no, we will find out that it was a DEI thing.
Well, I do feel bad for people who, like, you know, are suddenly getting canned when it wasn't like they didn't, you know what I mean? They didn't do anything necessarily, I mean, to deserve it. Like the change happened and then they're just fired. But if you were behind bad choices that you were hiring based on checkboxes, not skill, I mean, it kind of is your fault too.
Yeah, and we saw this. I mean, I think tech and entertainment knew which way the winds were blowing well before Trump signed it on the federal level, because they were already getting rid of DEI themselves. Mm-hmm. And really it came down to, this isn't profitable. We're putting out subpar product and people aren't buying it. It's not profitable. It's hurting us in the wallet, but we want to be really nice people. We want to be good people. We don't want the internet to get mad at us. And he's saying,
I don't think it was even that. I think it was all the money.
Yeah, there was a whole rabbit hole of, you know, if you did XYZ thing, you got the ESG money. It is a legit thing. Do I think it's as insidious as some people? I don't know the extent of it, but there, you know, when you take out loans or you get funding or whatever from a venture capital group, there are usually strings attached. We expect you to adhere to this, that, and everything else. And so they were doing what they were told. Like, oh, we'll give you, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars, but you're going to hire this number of, you know, kind of person or whatever. And boy, it'd be a real shame. It'd be a real shame if Twitter when it was Twitter, found out that you didn't have enough black folks or gay folks or whoever working here, wouldn't it? It'd be a real shame. And now they're just like, yeah, we don't have to play the game anymore. He said many feel relieved they don't have to pretend. And we saw this before. I mean, hell, Target is already, they were getting rid of it before Trump was sworn in. We saw, what was it? Tractor Supply was one, John Deere, Bud Light, because the damage has been
getting rid of some too. Was it Walmart?
Walmart, which we didn't even know they had, but apparently they did. They're all voluntarily getting rid of their DEI people. Even at Hollywood, Disney, they tossed their DEI person overboard. Now the thing is they're trying to hide it more. And I know there's a lot of talk about DEI becoming something called Bridge, which is basically it's DEI plus, where it's injected into every aspect of a company. And I'm sure there are some companies that will try to do something like that. But the executive order basically said, if you try to hide it, if you try to call DEI something else, we will find out, and you're toast. Like it's done.
Yeah, but see, what I'm afraid of is if people are going to hire based on merit, and they hire people that aren't white, straight, and male based on merit, are people still going to yell, it's DEI, and that's what I'm worried about. Because I'm worried it's going to go too far the other way too, where people that are legitimately qualified aren't going to be treated fairly either, because they're afraid of backlash over this DEI stuff that they themselves were the ones that caused.
That's it. In the long term, it might have been a short-term solution, but in the long term, you've actually caused harm to women and minorities, because now people are going to look at somebody that's not a straight white man in some cases and be like, well, they can't possibly be qualified, which puts us back to the 1950s, doesn't it?
It's like, stop hiring DEI. And it's like, but they might not be. That might be the most qualified
might person. Just be that person's the most qualified person,
but
right?
But you guys set this up now because you guys, screwed the pooch on it. And now here we are.
You leave furries out of this. Anyway, so this, I'll just throw this in here too, because this is a talking point. This is published 2 days ago. This is a talking point from another era. It's so weird to see everything happen so quickly just in the last week. I mean, it's just been like, literally just like flipping off a switch and being like, yep, the DEI stuff is over. Like it was already on the decline for the last 6 months, but now is officially 100% over. But this is the Gamer, of course, and they're bragging about the ratio of women and non-binary people working as developers in studios, and we can connect that, I believe, on some level if they are DEI hires. I think you can connect that to the high-profile failures of several of these games. We just talked about Dragon Age: The Veilguard, and it became all about pronouns. And of course, the director was on the gender ideology spectrum and got gone and cost the company a bunch of money. And the director probably was a DEI hire. I'm going to be honest. Probably. But here we go. Let's get Gamer. Women and non-binary devs make up 32% of all game developers, up from 24% in 2022.
Okay.
How did that happen? Well, males still make up 66% of game developers, down from 75% in 2020. We need to get rid of all those men. See,
here's the things. I don't really care what the percentages are. I just want to know, are people that are making the games qualified?
Exactly. Yeah, that's just it. But again, where the harm is done in all this is you have made a person's gender identity, racial identity, sexual identity the focal point above what they could do. Like, don't tell me who they are. Show me what they can do.
Yes.
Who gives a shit who they are? Are they good or...
Yeah. And because they put the focus on that, then, everybody, all they want to know is what their percentage is, and they assume they don't deserve to be there.
Right.
And it's really not good.
And so you've got people out there, I'm sure, they were kind of waiting in the wings, be like, yeah, I just want to make good games. I just want to make good cartoons. I just want to make good comics, whatever. But I just happen to be XYZ thing that's not a straight white male. And people are going to assume I'm a diversity hire. And now they might not get a chance because there were so many unqualified people that were put in positions of power that dropped the ball or abused their power, that now some of those people are not going to get a chance.
Well, you read the next part, though. The game developing space is undergoing a seismic shift in the diversity makeup, with the new state of the industry reporting that 12% of all game, is it 12 or 32?
32.
32, it's hard to read. 32% of all game developers now identify as female or non-binary. Identify. So when they're saying there's a 32%,
would I get? Oh my God! I could just, here's the thing that's crazy about
they could
this.
just say, "Hey, identify as a woman now and get a job."
Did you ever see Bosom? Did you ever see Bosom Buddies?
Yes, that was a good show, actually.
Yeah. So all you gotta do is say, "Hey, I identify as female. I want to be a female game developer."
Mm-hmm. So that's what got me. It's those who identify or non-binary. So they're considering non-binary in with those who identify as female.
Males still make up stinky males. Males still make up 66% of all game developers. 24% identify as LGBT. 24% identify as LGBTQ+. Why is there so much focus on shipping and gender ideology in modern video games?
Right, but it's so
just saying.
Why are they changing it to just because? Okay, if I get a job at some place, and let's say I identify differently, and I get a job at some place like doing, making burgers or something. I'm not gonna. People just want to know if I can make good burgers. My burgers don't have to be rainbow now. But see, they're just getting these jobs and they're going into the company, and it's not.
Don't you want to taste the rainbow, you bigot?
It's not enough to get a good game. You can't just go and make a good game. No, the game is only good if it reflects me. So I have to I have to insert myself into everything. Take that as you will.
So I'm looking at this though, and I'm like, it really is skewed one way. And this kind of I'm going to be honest, this kind of confirms a lot of biases that people had. People keep joking about the comic book industry kind of being overrun with a lot of feminist lesbians. And this kind of seems to cement that in gaming. They said, 24% LGBTQ+. It's a 3% year-on-year increase. It found that almost half, 43% of developers age 18 to 24 identify as LGBTQ+. Half, that is statistically unlikely. With women...
That's probably what they're probably deliberately hiring. You have more checkboxes. It's not enough that you're one or the other. There's more checkboxes, And
women are far more likely to identify as LGBTQ+.
Also not surprised by that at all.
Because they're just hiring a bunch of feminist lesbians at most of these companies. That's my takeaway from it.
And look, I have
whatever. If they're qualified, they're qualified. But I'm just saying that seems to be what's going on.
I don't think people really care so much either, like that the Veilguard, the Dragon Age Veilguard game or whatever, and the fact that they have the character that's kind of dark skin, okay, and we have the character it's female or non-binary but looks female, okay, and they have the character. Even if she liked another girl, people don't care, okay. The problem is that they've made it. It's not enough. Then we have to have cutscenes lecturing you. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's like, it's okay if you want to put diversity in there and just make it part of the game. People wouldn't have thought twice about it. The problem is, a few years ago they wouldn't. Now they would. You've gone so far and you've been so ham-fisted and you've called them names. They didn't like a game because it might have been because of mechanics. But you blamed them for being bigots and never took responsibility yourself. And so now people question it, and they didn't question it before. Like normally they were like, okay, brown girl likes girls, who cares?
Yeah.
Now they're questioning it because of your own actions.
Well, that was like we did the other video about animation and Nickelodeon, and normally we'd look at it and just be like, oh, it's a cute cartoon, whatever. And now everything you look at, you're like, oh, I couldn't help but notice the racial makeup of the cast. You know what I'm saying? We never used to look at that
before. No,
we didn't care before. But then now even that article, I don't even think we talked about it, but the showrunner of that cartoon was even like, I never used to see people like me on TV, so it's super important. But I'm like, it's kind of the point now where that's pretty much all you see now is people that look like me. Everybody gets their OC in games. Everybody gets their OC on screen. Everybody gets, you know what I'm saying? You're not allowed to create media that has people in it that are outside of your personal wheelhouse. You're not allowed to voice characters that don't look like you, that don't identify as you, your gender or sexuality or whatever, which is very weird. This is a very weird time. So it's like in some ways it's trying to be more progressive, but it's also very regressive. Like you can only play, stay in your lane. And it's just very, very weird. And I think getting rid of the DEI actually will get rid of that to some degree. But like you said, I think there's going to be some overcorrection at first. And I think it's
unfortunate, but yeah,
which is unfortunate. I mean, it really is, because there have always been women working in programming and, going back to the beginning of video games, there have always been diverse people in there. But
I'm sure there's people that are working in games that happen to be diverse, and they are not putting it into the games. Like they're not the ones making that decision. They're just like, I'm just want to do my job. I don't think, my personal identity should be, forced in a game. I'm sure there's people like that. But the problem is these, and I think it's most of the younger people that we're seeing an increase in that are like, I'm here now, bitches. Everybody's gonna be like me. You're gonna all play like me. And I don't think, that works. And I think that you need to be worrying more about making good games first and shoving an identity second. And they're not, or not at all, preferably. But here we are.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that it's going to be, again, when we're talking the DEI getting walked back, we're talking on a federal level. We're talking a lot of companies are probably going to drop it on their own if they haven't already done so. They're going to use this
as an out now, yes.
The ones who are going to do it are going to use it as an out, right? The ones who maybe never did it are going to have a sigh of relief, because they're gonna be like, oh, thank God Twitter can't come. Well, Twitter doesn't exist anymore, but these people, Blue Sky can't come after us because it's not as big of a deal as it was before. Now you're going to have individual studios, I'm sure, that they can hire whoever the hell they want to. If you're a private business, you can hire whoever the hell you want to, but somebody I don't think should be shamed for, because you always get this whole like, oh, look at that programmer's room. Look at, they're all a bunch of stinky old white men. I'm like, well, if they're a bunch of stinky old white men that put games out that people like, I mean, you go look at Nintendo and be like, look, it's all Japanese men.
High Guardian Spice.
Yeah, look at High Guardian Spice, the most diversest thing out there, and it was not great. It wasn't as bad. Actually, you sat through the whole thing, and you said it wasn't the worst thing you've ever seen, but it definitely wasn't the best thing ever made. And it clearly was an OC character.
They presented it to people wasn't about, here's a good show we want to tell you about. It's like, here's all the diversity about the show. And I think that's the problem. I think that's a prime example. Instead of saying, here's a good game that we want to talk about that happens, it might happen to have a person who's, not white in the lead, and it might be a woman, and she might like women, but so what? Here's the good game. It's all about this game. Here's the character. Here's what she's about. Here's what her mission is, et cetera, et cetera. But instead, here's this character, and she's non-binary, and she likes women. I'm sorry, they're non-binary, and they like women, and they're this, and that, and they're the most Mary Sue ever. And if you don't like it, you're a chud and a bigot. That's what you get instead.
Great for sales.
And here's our design team and our consultant firm, Sweet Baby Inc. and all the other crap. And it's like, when people, don't do that. Just tell us, here's a good game, great character, here's the mission. Who cares who the fuck they're sleeping with? No pun intended. And sorry, Mom. That's what people want. Just good games that are fun.
Yeah, and you could have. I mean, this is the thing. It's like you could have done this differently. You could have had those DEI initiatives and just kind of kept it as like an internal thing. Like, we like to hire people from outside the usual group of suspects or whatever, but it's not something we go broadcast and then we don't browbeat our
audience
customers. Yeah,
like play games. Do you sit there and think, oh my gosh, there better have been like at least 50% of lesbians who developed this game?
Not enough. Well, they're even trying to like go back and they're like, well, Samus Aran is trans, and it's like, okay, like we need to look for diversity. Like, what about Ms. Pac-Man? How does she identify? Who gives a shit? Did you know it was men that worked on Ms. Pac-Man? Oh my God, how very dare they?
I'm just tired of it. Just give me a good game that's fun, and I don't spend my time thinking about who worked on it. I'm sorry, you know the company, but you don't know the individual people. You don't need to. So stop trying to DEI everything and then shove it, and then people don't like it. It's not because your game sucks, it's because they're bigots. They don't even know who worked on it in the first place.
Right. So it's going to change. Again, I do believe that there are going to be some studios that are going to keep it kind of unofficially this is our policy because this is what we want to do. And that's fine. If you're a private business, that's what you want to do. But across the board, I wouldn't broadcast it if you want, you know what I'm saying? Like, just hire people, because if that's your selling point, is look at the racial makeup or the gender makeup of our studio, you're going to appeal to a very, very small audience and people in Portland who give a shit. Most people don't care. So we're going to wrap it up. Let's wrap it up. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. We'll talk later.
Bye.